Hey y'all, here are OS Reviews. Today we're taking a quick look at the Broan NuTone BNAP 100. This is a smart air purifier designed to both sanitize as well as remove allergens like dust and fine particles from the air. And it achieves this through a combination of a HEPA filter as well as a UVC light, which will again further sanitize, kill any bacteria and germs. Air purifiers, of course, can come in handy in various scenarios, including if you're living in a more busy metropolis where there's higher air pollution levels. And as global warming and climate change continues to occur, there's also growing amounts of wildfires spreading in various regions, unfortunately. So this can also remove some of the smoke in the air. This model in particular also doesn't use any ionization, so there is no ozone that gets generated during the cleaning process, although it's on the more compact side, as you can tell here, measuring about 15 inches tall, about 9 inches wide. Just as reference, here we have a smartphone about 6.5 inches just to serve as a reference, but should be effective enough in a living room, a bedroom space, something like that. It's also a smart air purifier because it has built-in Wi-Fi, allowing you to connect to the internet and can be controlled wirelessly from a smartphone app. And you can also access the sensor on the top, which can display stats including the PM1, PM2.5, and PM10. Just as reference, this refers to the size or diameter of the ultrafine particles. For example, PM1 means the particles have to be less than 1 micrometer versus 2.5 micrometers and 10 micrometers. That means if it's set to PM10, it should theoretically track dust particles that are floating in the air, larger things, versus PM1 gets even smaller particles, including certain virus and bacteria should also be trackable at that size. So pretty cool that the sensor on board can track all those levels of various pollutants and bacteria in the air accordingly through those different settings. And it can automatically detect and change the intensity of the purification, basically the fan speed as a result. On the other hand, TVOC refers to vapors and gases such as carbon dioxide, which is instead filtered out using a charcoal filter in conjunction with the regular HEPA filter for fine particles, in case there's a high concentration of dangerous gases in the air. So a closer look at the design, it is very clean. The body is otherwise constructed out of polycarbonate plastic. There's a quick info card on the very top, as well as a QR code that you can scan to download the companion app, and this card should be removed when you are done. Otherwise, the clean air will come out from the top, and then the surrounding air will be sucked in using the vents on the side. The presence of the handle makes it feel a little bit more premium, easy to carry around, and otherwise it blends in well into a normal room with white walls, doesn't really stand out too much. The charging adapter can also be removed in case you want to replace this cable, and I like that it's also accented in white, just like the air purifier itself. Packaging is also quite simple, with just an eco-friendly cardboard box, inside containing the, of course, air purifier, the power adapter, and the user manual. The one spec that is worth pointing out on the box here, though, is it is recommended for a room of around 236 square feet for the maximum utility. And on the very bottom here is where you'll find some soft touch rubber feet, preventing it from sliding around, and more importantly, the door that you can unlock to swap out the HEPA filter. So just give this a bit of a twist, and afterwards you can pull out the filter. When you first get it out of the box, by the way, there is a plastic sheet that is wrapped around this, so make sure you remove that before you start using the device. And on the inside here, there's the fan, as well as the UV light bulb if we zoom all the way in. When it comes to the frequency of having to swap out the filter, it kind of depends on your air quality, and there is thankfully also a display as well as a mode in the app that will tell you when the filter needs changing, but as a rough rule of thumb, most filters will last around 6 to 12 months, so up to a year before you have to swap it out. Zooming out to the top, we can simply touch on this button here to turn on the purifier. Everything is capacitive and touch sensitive. It is smart enough to remember the last mode that you set it on, even if you disconnect it from power, so there's a little bit of memory inside. For example, if you set it to higher intensity level, it will resume that setting when you first turn it on versus going into the auto mode. So from here, if we tap on the fan icon, you're able to change the strength of the purification, aka how fast the fan is spinning and then circulating the air. So by default, this is level 1, which is pretty quiet. In fact, if you are even napping next to it, you really can't notice it. Compared to some of the higher levels, I would say getting past level 3 is where you can definitely notice an increase when it comes to volume. So doing a quick demo there. Level 3, level 4, level 5, and then it toggles down to a sleep mode, which is I would say actually quite similar to level 1, but maybe just a touch even more quiet by contrast, so it's the most silent. But as you heard there, level 5 was the loudest, and you'll definitely notice it, but it might be the most effective if you're trying to really quickly circulate and clean the air of a larger room or space. In the sleep mode, the display will time out after a few seconds to not wake you up, which is pretty thoughtful, compared to the other modes where you are able to either dim the display panel here, turn it off completely, or have it on at the brightest mode. I kind of like how the display here is done in this dot matrix format as well. It actually looks quite stylish. Researchers typically recommend having the purifier actually running at a moderate speed of, say, level 2 or 3, so there's sufficient air getting passed through and circulating through the sensors for it to accurately determine the real level in the surrounding air. If the level here, such as on sleep, is going to be too quiet, the fan isn't spinning fast enough, obviously it doesn't have as much of a chance to really pick up the accurate reading of pollutants in the air. So just something to keep in mind. The timer here, you can also have the entire thing turn off. On the air purifier itself, it goes all the way up to 12 hours and then back down again. Now from here you can also tap on switch to change the reading for the sensor. This will go into TVOC, which again determines if there's any gases in the air. PM10, so now it's increasing the particle sizes that are being recognized. Otherwise, if we tap on auto, so the fan speed and everything will now be determined by the machine itself instead of us manually toggling on that button. You can also turn on or off the UVC light purification for sanitizing the air. So fairly simple and easy to operate, to be completely honest, even without the companion app. I felt like it was quite intuitive, but the app just gives you a little bit more flexibility. Say if you're further away from the purifier, pairing is relatively fast. All you have to do is tap on the Wi-Fi button there for about 5 seconds until it starts to blink, and then you can tap to add a device, basically share your Wi-Fi router's password with the air purifier so it can then connect to the internet. And from this point, we'll be greeted to a pretty intuitive interface. The accents are all in green, matching that of what we find on the air purifier itself. And by the way, the color of the LED light on the ring there will also change depending on the air quality. It's green right now because the quality in this room seems to be good. However, it can also turn yellow as a warning and also red if the air is severely polluted. So it's an RGB light. From here, we can turn the entire thing on and off, as well as monitor at once the quality, both in terms of 2.5, PM1, PM10, and the TVOC level. Although higher levels of any of these metrics aren't great, TVOC isn't always correlated with the room or air being dangerous. For example, if you've been cooking, naturally there would be more oils and gases in the air, and that number will spike compared to if things settle down for a little bit. So just something to keep in mind. Compared to PM levels will always be more tied closely to allergens and dust particles. Otherwise, from here on the bottom, we can also manually change the fan speed. This makes it a little bit faster to toggle between levels 1 and 5, for example, at a simple click, as opposed to having to cycle through incremental levels to reach there. You can also go into the auto mode as well, in addition to the sleep mode, UVC. So similar functions can also be directly toggled here using this page. Now under the settings tab on the very top, you can also connect to Alexa as well as Google Assistant. Occasional firmware and software updates for the air purifier will also be available here under advanced settings. Otherwise, the timer mode can also be accessed on the top there. So this is still going to go in increments of hourly basis. There is no half hour or minutes that you have available, so that is perhaps something they can add in a future software update. Similarly, you can go through completely off for the LED accents versus a kind of dim mode, as well as the maximum mode that we saw there from earlier. Finally, under more, there's also a mute. For the simple speaker that you heard there, whenever we tap on a button, it gives you a confirmation, but you can also mute that. And there's also a child lock function as well. So under this mode, none of the buttons that are on the top here, which are touch sensitive, can be triggered. Everything has to be unlocked from the app or done from here instead. And by the way, it is possible to connect multiple air purifiers as well, say if you have different units set up for multiple rooms. So that is more or less it as far as our quick hands-on look at the Broan NuTone, again the BNAP 100 Smart Air Purifier. It's not the first air purifier that we've checked out, but perhaps the most stylish one in terms of having that leather handle accent, really clean look, and for a relatively compact unit, it is surprisingly effective. For lack of a better description, just feels a lot more fresh. And although this might be partially due to a pseudo effect, and will definitely depend on your surroundings and region, but for me at least, I did feel like I had fewer allergens pop up. I could even sleep a little bit better after kind of almost sanitizing and purifying the air for a little bit. So performance, at least in my eyes, seemed to be working quite well for a kind of small air purifier of its class. So you can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Broan NuTone B-Nap 100.